Hi everyone, Matt Byrne here in the Daily Racing Form Studios, taking a look at the Sunday DRF Bets race of the day. It is race number 11 from Remington Park, 1 mile on the main track. It is the Springboard mile, $400,000 is the purse. Let's take a look at the field. These are 2-year-olds. Some of them hopefully with bigger and better aspirations down the road, not to diminish this race, but you would think that some of these major contenders would have an eye toward potentially getting on the road to the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown in general. Head on over to the Race of the Day page on DRF.com. You can get free formulator past performances and handicap along as we go right in post position order. But before we get to that point, we have to talk about DRF Bets and let you know about the new and improved deals that there are for you. You can head on over there and check all sorts of things out, particularly if you're a new sign-up member. Up to a $300 sign-up bonus, DRF.com/fall. The fall promo code is fall300. Let's get into some handicapping. The number one is Combatant for Steve Asmussen. Broke the maiden most recently on October the 29th. That was at Churchill Downs. 1-turn mile. Now we have to go to 2-turn mile. But if you look at the career debut, 2 turns didn't seem to be an issue. That was on turf. The question is this horse good enough? From a Timeform standpoint, a 93 Timeform US rating. From a Beyer standpoint, a 77. Going to need to improve a little bit if he's going to run with the likes of a Gravitas. But at the same time, who's to say that these lightly raced 2-year-olds don't take a step forward? He's 4-1 on the morning line. The number 2, Major Brown. We're going to get into a group of horses now that are coming from the local preps, and they look like they're just a little bit overmatched on paper. It's hard to sugarcoat it. Major Brown looks like one of those horses. Most recently came through in a non-winners of two lifetime, gate to wire fashion. There's a scenario where I can see this horse being forward, but I'm not entirely sure he's good enough to get the job done. I can say the same thing for the number 3, Brangelina, simply because from a Beyer standpoint, the horse needs to improve by leaps and bounds. But as our friends at Timeform US have indicated with the Timeform US pace projector, if you think that this horse can sit a little bit off the pace and you get that hot pace up front, perhaps that could set things up and maybe you get to take advantage of that tactical speed. Brangelina, to me, even still 30-1 in the morning line, probably deserves to be somewhere in that ballpark. The 4, Bodie's Maker, another horse that now you're going to stretch out from the Clever Trevor, which is the local prep for the Springboard mile. That's at 7/8 of a mile. And the race as a whole has come back relatively decent in the grand scheme of things. The problem is this horse, you're taking slow incremental steps forward from a Beyer standpoint. Maybe that's going to be enough if you get another forward move. But even with a forward move from a 68, you would assume that you're probably thinking somewhere in the mid-70s, even a high 70, if you believe the figure that Gravitas earned in the Bob Hope. And if you believe some of the other figures in this race, that's simply not fast enough. Maybe a horse that you want to consider using underneath in exotics. The 5 is Flip the Coin Jan for Doug O'Neill. Broke the maiden most recently in a maiden claimer. That was at Del Mar, going 1 mile. Not quite in gate-to-wire fashion, but essentially gate-to-wire fashion. Went off and hid, run by 7 1/4 lengths. Again, from a Beyer standpoint, that 76 Beyer, it's mildly competitive. You're going to need to take a step forward if you're going to win in a race like this. And the concern is if you believe the Timeform US pace projector and this horse is going to be forwardly placed, I just have a hard time envisioning a trip that works out for Mario Gutierrez and Doug O'Neill. I'm also always a little bit leery about the Trap Shot babies. How far do they actually want to go? Trap Shot himself was best as sort of a 7/8 kind of horse. I wonder if ultimately that's what this horse will be as well. The 6 is Night Strike for Brett Calhoun, a horse that won an Oklahoma-bred stakes race most recently at Remington Park, but only did so with a 64 Beyer speed figure. Going to be coming from slightly off the pace, going to need to improve considerably. The 7, Sol Pise, another horse going to need to improve considerably. The good thing about Sol Pise is at least you're looking at a horse that is lightly raced and maybe you can project some sort of a forward move. Hasn't been seen since the end of September, has gone away for a few months here, but it seems like if you look at the workout tab, pretty consistent since the middle of November leading into this race on Sunday afternoon. The Soldats so far have been a kind of hit or miss as far as he is going from a stallion standpoint, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really feel like you know what this one wants to do. I know so far you haven't done a heck of a lot wrong when you stretch out to 2 turns in that maiden special weight race, won by 5 3/4 lengths. The problem I have with that race as a whole, very, very weak at this point. And another horse that figures to be forwardly placed in a race where if they're forward, they're probably going to be going in a pretty good clip. The 8, Flat Lucky, another Steve Asmussen runner, gets blinkers added for the first time. They paid $50,000 for the son of Flat out at the Keeneland September 2016 sale. He, at this point in his career, his only victory victory came in gate-to-wire fashion in his career debut at 5.5 furlongs at Ellis Park, and that was when there was a very sort of slow pace on, if you believe the Timeform US color coding situation. It seems like it's very unlikely that this horse is going to be able to make it to the front and clear off. The 9 Reditory is the winner of the Clever Trevor, the local prep here for the Springboard Mile. And I have to be honest, visually, I think this horse looks good. The concern is a couple things. Pedigree, there is none to speak of, a son of oratory, but then the other concern is, how far does he want to go? I thought the 7/8 race, he looked good. He never really got out of first gear. Having said that, they were making up a little bit of ground on him toward the end of the race. I just kind of felt like maybe if you go out to 2 turns, maybe that ends up being a little bit of a detriment. I think he's a nice horse. He hasn't done anything wrong thus far, and the connection's good on him. I would just continue to ride this wave. I do wonder, as the water gets a little bit deeper, is he going to get a little bit more exposed? But I think he looks good, and he's an interesting runner at 12-1. The 10 is Believe in Royalty for Larry Jones. This is a horse that most recently aired at Laurel Park going a 1-turn mile. 2 starts back, broke through in a maiden score over a sloppy sealed track in a 1-turn mile at Laurel Park. Continues to take steps forward, and I wonder, the career debut at Delaware, not a bad effort by any stretch of the imagination. You know that he can handle a wet track, and that most recent run, if you go back and watch that, this is a horse they paid $900,000 for. They clearly have high thoughts. And you see, obviously, you see the damn Believe You Can. There's a lot of pedigree here. You'd like to think that this horse is going to be a runner, and thus far, when you see him on the racetrack, he looks like a runner. I think Believe in Royalty is a very, very interesting player in here. The curious thing for me is, where is he going to be positioned in the running? Because that most recent run came in gate-to-wire fashion, 2 starts back gate-to-wire fashion, and if you believe the pace projector, maybe the front isn't where you're going to want to be. Breaking from that outside post in the 10-hole, you're going to have to work something out here if you're Robbie Alvarado, but it looks like Believe in Royalty. He's living up to that high pedigree and that lofty pedigree. Maybe he can turn into a serious runner as a 3-year-old. The 11, Kingsville, another horse, just unfortunately on paper looks a little bit on the slow side. You're going to need your top contenders to regress, and you're going to need to improve by leaps and bounds. And that brings us to the morning line favorite, the heavy morning line favorite. That is the number 12, Gravitas for Adam Kitchingman. Victor Espinoza comes in to ride this horse. They debuted him on the turf going 2 turns. That was in July at Santa Anita. You understand why when you see this pedigree Snowtop Mountain. She was a long-distance turf router. She was very good. Malibu Moon, totally capable on the turf, also capable on the dirt, though. That run 2 starts back, October the 21st, 5.5 furlongs on the dirt at Santa Anita. It looked like he'd resented the kickback, but when he got out to the clear, he ran and he finished very, very well. It made me think that he had a puncher's chance going into the Bob Hope. I didn't think he would be able to beat Mourinho, but I thought he'd run well. Well, guess what? He made it to the front in this spot, Gravitas did, and he went and wired the field. He earned a 93 Beyer speed figure, a 116 Timeform US rating. Both of those very clearly the fastest numbers in this entire race. The interesting thing is going to be to find out what kind of trip Victor Espinoza works out from the far outside post, going a mile. You've got a short run into that first turn at Remington Park, going a mile. I wonder if this is a scenario where he won Gates-of-Wire most recently, but do you kind of harken back to what we had 2 starts back, where he showed that he'll run a little bit and he can sit a little off the pace? I wonder if you really have no choice from that outside post. You just kind of take up a stalking position, let the speeds go, and then hope that you're just simply better than them. Gravitas is 6-5 on the morning line. He's going to take some beating, but if you want to look at it and say maybe the outside post compromises him, maybe shipping compromises him 2 turns, whatever it may be, maybe there are a couple little weaknesses that you can go against him with, and based on my pick, I'm going to take a small stab against him, and I don't even want to call it a stab because I think Believe in Royalty is a really, really interesting runner. Again, the pedigree is there. Believe You Can. Adam Tappet, or by Tappet, excuse me, they paid $900,000 for this horse. He looks like a runner out on the racetrack. He's a big gray snow bunny. He's going to have the blinkers on. He hasn't done anything wrong in 3 lifetime starts, and I wonder maybe he can get the job done here in the Springboard Mile and propel himself to bigger and better things as a 3-year-old leading in to the trail to the Kentucky Derby. So I'm going to go with Believe in Royalty. If you're playing at home, check out DRF Bets. All sorts of good deals. And again, we'll go back to that sign-up bonus. $300 sign-up bonus is yours if you were a new sign-up member. Check it out, drf.com/fall. The promo code is fall300. Scheduled post time for the Sunday DRF Bets Race of the Day, Race 11 from Remington Park. The $400,000 Springboard Mile is 7:40 Central. Good luck.